What's up, Trendsetter kings and queens? Stick around, let's chill, and spill some trending tea. Quick disclaimer, the audio is a little off, but the tea is piping hot.
Week one has come to a close. We heard the rest of Kelsey Harris's recorded interview with the district attorney and their investigator. Let me catch you up on everything that went on. Two ways you can look at this recording. One, it's her honest account of what happened. She sounds confident, she sounds poised, she's telling you every single thing in sequence. Two, you can look at it as somebody who's giving rehearsed statements to police because she's guilty of crimes and doesn't want to tell the truth, and she's got her lawyers on the line and 2.5 years to prepare, so she spins a nice little story that makes her and Meg look good. I don't know, you be the judge. In her recorded testimony, she tells the whole story of what happened. We go to this gathering at Kylie Jenner's house. Apparently, when you go to a gathering at Kylie Jenner's house, it can be pretty cool. There's lots of security, as many as 6 when you pull up. OBJ is there. It's like a hotel. You get your own room to check into. Quite fan. The whole issue of Kylie and Tori and Meg getting jealous and them trying to pull Meg out, and then they leave, and then they come back because Meg said she forgot a slipper, and then Kylie kicks them out, and now we're in the car. Tori's saying stuff like, hey Meg, why don't you tell your friend what's so funny, referring to the fact that Meg backdoored Kelsey by hooking up with Tori, and then they're like getting back at him like, yo, whatever, you this, you're that. She's making fun of his career. You're only relevant because you were on a Jack Harlow feature. He's popping shit like, yo, I'm from Canada. Car, they both get out of the car. She sees Tori hop from the back to the front. He's got a gun and he points it and he shoots at Megan. That's the recorded statement. Does that add up and mesh with everything else? Well, how did the jewelry fall? How did the necklace get on the floor? She says, well, that's Tori physically assaulting me, and that's how all that happened. As far as her and Meg getting into an altercation, no mention to the police on the recorded interview. Was there a police officer or a detective from the LAPD at that interview treating it like she might be a suspect or hostile? Absolutely not. If you ask me, I don't think Tori was the only aggressor putting hands on people. That's what I get, if you ask me, when you look at the very different stories that everybody's telling and the part that the two females don't want to talk about. Remember the physical statures of the people involved. The idea that only men can physically assault women is a common misconception and not at all accurate. That's the shooting. Then they all get back in the car. They're driving. Kelsey texts my security. She texts the security. That's the text. Tori shot Meg, 911. Is that a real text? Is that a cover up? Then the rest was all of the aftermath, that when they get released, that there were indications made to her from Tori's team that they would invest in her business or that they'd be willing to talk to her about giving her money. Whether any of that was a bribe or was taken, Kelsey denied. And then what happened afterwards in terms of her communications with other people post the incident. She said that she basically never has talked to Meg. They had one conversation. Meg and her team were lying to her and saying that, hey, I'm really badly injured. I'm going to be out of commission for probably at least a year. There's nothing for you to do here. You need to get out of LA. And they basically shoot her away and sent her on to Houston, and she hasn't heard from her since. The recording ends with the prosecutors asking that, hey, are you just saying all this to get back into Meg's good graces? And she says, no, I'm saying all this to relieve myself of the burden of this. I just want to move on from it. On cross-examination, the defense highlighted a couple key facts about this interview. One, there was no police presence, nobody investigating or asking Kelsey hard questions. Two, there was no grant of immunity to Kelsey at that time. So if she did have stuff to hide her own criminality, she would not have been immune from making statements, and so she had an incentive to lie. Three, they had asked her during the interview about certain text messages that might be relevant to the investigation, but there was no follow-up. They never went back and said, hey, can we get those text messages? And four, the idea that her lawyers were on the line and that this is rehearsed, prepared testimony that she had a lot of time to get ready for and give. Like I said, ultimately, what do you make of that recording? Well, you're going to listen to all the evidence in this trial. Trial continues next week, and then you're going to make your decision on who's lying, who's telling the truth. How did those bullet fragments get into Meg Thee Stallion's foot? And is Tory Lanez guilty or not guilty? Find out all that and more next week. For exclusive, additional, interesting tidbits, check out the subscription here on the main page. You will see posts about the DNA expert and the ballistics expert who testified today. But you're going to have to wait for that because I got to get some dinner. Catch you up on what happened with the DNA experts. So both of the DNA experts said pretty much the exact same thing with very minute differences. Here's the basics, and then I'll tell you what I think. So they both said that the magazine was tested and there were 4 DNA profiles on the magazine, and you can tell that none of those are Tori. So most likely Tori never touched this magazine. On the gun, they both said the same thing, that there's 4 profiles on the gun, but it's inconclusive. You can't tell if the DNA is Tori's or somebody else's. Now, both experts agreed that you would expect to see Tori's DNA on the gun if he had shot it 5 times. The defense experts seemed to go further and say, look, if he shot that gun 5 times and then they tested it, you would conclusively see that he's on it. You don't see that here, suggesting strong DNA evidence in Tori's favor. Now, then the prosecution went to try to discredit the defense expert. He's like, aren't you getting paid by the defense? Don't you always work for defendants? He's like, yeah, the LAPD has their crime prosecutor, and then defendants hire private companies like mine to do the forensics. It's like, oh, okay, well, how much are you getting paid? The guy's like $250 an hour. How much has he paid you total? The guy's like $6,000. It's like, oh, well, it was really kind of just like, look, there's experts, man. This guy's been doing it forever. He's like, are you accredited? And he's like, no, I didn't apply for accreditation. I'm certified by the same people who do accreditation. It's like, well, what does that mean? He's like, well, twice a year, our lab people all get tested. They send them blind samples. They have to do the analysis, send it back, and then we get the results. He's like, oh, okay, well, what are the results? He's like, well, we never got anything wrong. And the guy's like, how do we know that? He's like, I'm telling you. It's like, how do we know you're not lying? He's like, well, you can check. I'll show you the records. And then he just kept going on and on. Look, at the end of the day, the DNA evidence came out strongly, I think, in favor of Tori. We'll see where the rest of the trial takes us. There was one other part, the big part, which is that they never gave the crime lab Kelsey's DNA. And so on defense, the defense brought out this point that, hey, if you ever get a case file and there's 2 people with GSR, wouldn't you expect to get 2 people's DNA? And the guy's like, yeah, that would make sense. If there's 2 people who've tested positive for the GSR and we're testing one's DNA, we ought to test both DNA. Duh.
Fam, what do you think about this case so far? It's a very interesting testimony we got from Kelsey this week, and I find it odd that both Kelsey and Tori had GSR, but they only tested Tori and not Kelsey. Anyways, fam, let me know how you feel, what you think. Share your thoughts below. All right, Trendsetters, I've enjoyed spilling the tea with you. Remember to support one another and show love. Y'all support your girl. It's free. It's Trendsettertea, babes. This is a new channel, so hit that like button and subscribe and come back for some more trending hot tea. Trendsetters, I love you, fam. Bye.